session is brought to you by Focusrite, and we're very excited to hear from John Kiernan. He is the head of marketing for Podbean. He has 8 years of of marketing experience that spans a variety of fields, from music education and artist relations to podcasting. He is very data-driven and effectively creates marketing strategies for further growth for the companies that he works for. And just a great guy. I've worked with him on a couple of things. I've dealt with him in the past. And John is going to talk to us about growing your audience using live streaming. John, welcome.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. Thank you so much for having me as part of Outlier. It's really cool to be here. It's really interesting to be part of a virtual version of these conferences that we usually do. Thanks to everybody listening. Thanks for everybody who's hosting. And I just also want to shout out Focusrite. We use the Scarlett products and can't say enough good things about them. So if you're looking for interfaces, definitely look into those. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here so we can get started with the presentation here. All right, and let me hit play here. Now, just to make sure, does everybody see my screen okay? It should say using live stream to build your audience.
Looks good.
Okay, perfect. So this is going to be our topic for today about using live streaming to build your audience. Again, my name is John Kiernan. I'm the head of marketing here for Podbean. And when we talk about live streaming, we traditionally think about the video medium of live streaming. However, we have a new component as time has gone on in audio live streaming also. With podcasting being such an engaging medium, we're seeing a lot of usage on the audio only side, but we're going to talk a little bit about how you can use that to continue to grow your community. So what does it mean to live stream? First and foremost, one thing that I love about live streaming and I think is really important is it's a way for you to build genuine host delivery. So what do we mean when we talk about that? What we mean about genuine host delivery is when you record a podcast, a lot of the time that podcast is simply an uploaded audio file or an uploaded, let's say, video file, for example, that is simply digested by a listener. However, when you're doing a live stream, you have the ability to, in the moment, react and engage with the various listeners on your podcast. It also offers in-the-moment feedback and engagement, as we're talking about. So no longer is a live stream simply just you listening to a live stream. Now, as a listener, you have the ability to engage in the conversation. What's great about podcasting being such an engaging medium and such a personal medium is you often, and listeners often, have pretty passionate opinions about the subject matter you're talking about. And when you're talking about the ability to engage with that, it can really create some interesting conversations. Also, from a technical perspective and from a monetization perspective, a lot of the times doing a live stream is a great way to inspire impulse buying. So when we talk about impulse buying, it's those in-the-moment purchases that people make, those opportunities. For example, if you take it to a retail environment, you walk into a store, you see, for example, a piece of clothing or a piece of technology that just looks great. It's set up perfectly in the store, and it inspires you to purchase said item. When you're talking about live streaming, a lot of the different mediums offer the ability for you to in-the-moment donation. So, for example, if you're using Podbean Livestream or you're doing YouTube and you're doing Super Chat, these are ways that while you're in the midst of your conversation, you have the ability to financially put into these different live streams and podcasts. So it really helps build that engagement there as well. Now, a little bit about some general live streaming statistics. One of the biggest live stream channels in the world is Twitch. And based on some different statistics from 2019, Twitch viewers live streamed a total of 2.72 billion hours in the second quarter of 2019 here. And it's really interesting to see that. It's really interesting to see how engaged, even if it's not a pre-recorded video or a pre-recorded broadcast, to see how often and how many hours people are investing into that video platform here. We see some other statistics here too. YouTube has about 735 million. You have 197 million for Facebook gaming. And then on Mixer, you have 112 million hours. So between all of these higher level live streaming platforms, you see that there's an extremely high level and return of engagement. And also 40% of live streaming video viewers are streaming more live videos than compared with a year ago. So while we're going to talk about audio live streaming shortly, we're really seeing that people are enjoying and looking for that level of engagement with either their entertainment or even not just entertainment, but for, let's say, political podcasts or social commentary podcasts, or as we're talking about here with the video gaming viewership with Twitch. And then there was another report by Caneva in 2018 that found the viewing hours of live video content rose 65% from year to year from 2017 to 18, which took up the largest global surge of viewership throughout 2018. Now, with Podbean, we come discussing our Podbean Live platform, which is our audio-only live streaming platform. We released it around October 2019, and when we did this presentation a while ago, these stats are from 2019, so right after the launch. At that time, we had seen 1,483 live sessions with about 12,000 audience members and 161,000 minutes of live streams consumed. So when this was taken from, and it's only grown exponentially from here, when you take those numbers and figure that over a, let's say, 3-month span, you see that there's a load of different engagement and high amounts of engagement with live streaming. Not only are people looking for those video live streams, but they're also able to get a similar engagement and a similar feel from the audio only. And down here, if we see the growth of 2019, we've seen a 512% increase in live sessions. And we've been really grateful to see what's been going on in the world of live streaming and seeing how people are engaging with it. Now, a couple of points I want to bring up are how can live streaming enhance listener engagement? When we talk about engagement through listener live streaming, you talk about your current listenership and your current audience, as well as the audience that you're looking to build. With a lot of these platforms, whether it's YouTube, Twitch, Podbean Live, you have these platforms showcasing the live streams. So what's great about a live stream is it's happening in the moment. So your current listeners can develop a deeper relationship throughout the interactions of the live stream. Also, what's great is because these platforms, including us, allow for live show promotion, you not only have the ability to work with your own listenership, but this is a great way to establish a new listener base as well. As you're going live, a lot of us will post, let's say, on their front pages or in a separate section of the app, or even sometimes dedicate their own application for live streaming. So a lot of platforms are seeing this level of engagement that podcasters are having, and not just podcasters, but media moguls of all different places. And again, when it comes to, I keep stressing this about the genuine interaction that you get through a live stream, but listeners and people in general hunger for deep interactions. And even as we are in the world of podcasting, discussing how you can take an MP3 or pre-recorded audio file and edit that content, a lot of people will hunger for that kind of engagement. You know, you'll hear a difference between a live stream and a pre-recorded podcast. And sometimes that conversation piece is what can really draw somebody a little bit deeper into the said content. When we talk about live streaming, one thing that's great about it, no matter what platform you use, is the cultivation of a community. One of my big things that we do with Podbean is we also run webinars about promoting your podcast, monetizing. And one of the things I bring up in my promotional podcast is it's extremely understated in the world of marketing how important developing a community is, developing your own brand. There's a rule in the music industry, it's kind of understated, called the rule of 1,000, which is if you can create the amount of content for, let's say, 1,000 people to digest, then you can create a substantial living in the music industry. And that comes from building community. That moves into the same territory with podcasting and as it works with live stream and listener engagement development. Also, when you talk about live streaming, we talk about in the world of podcasting how you can do video podcasting, how you can have your general podcast, you can post multiple social media channels. There's a lot of different things that you can do, but live streaming is yet another piece of content that you can use to promote and build excitement. A lot of podcasters aren't just using live stream as their modus of how they promote their podcast and how they deliver their message, but they're using it for special events also. CBS now has a live stream with us where they use it for what they call Pick Six. So they're using it for the sports side of it. A podcast that I run, the wrestling podcast here, talks on live stream about the various Big Four pay-per-views and just various pay-per-views throughout the year. They're great for covering timely topics. You know, if you don't want to have a pre-record and you just want to sit down and give your immediate thoughts, sometimes those immediate, really passionate thoughts are the ones that people want to hear. And that engaging medium of live stream cuts out the filler between the editing and also gets you in the moment when the topics are the hottest. You can also develop an audience that's used to live streaming who maybe don't already listen to your podcasts. It's understated that a lot of podcasts may have a community, absolutely, but the fact that you can use live streaming to increase your listenership and develop an audience that, let's say, they might not have listened to your podcast before, but now they're starting to hear you in the reel. They're starting to hear you when you're speaking on topics that are timely or speaking in the moment. It's a different part of the personality of the podcaster that people can become engaged with. I put this all the way at the bottom, and I know I put it twice on here, but utilizing live streaming to host special events is probably one of the biggest additions that people have used to the platform. Now, why should you live stream? And before you hit start on your first live stream, whether it's YouTube or wherever, think about the why. Think about the different goals, what you're hoping to achieve. Think about some of the differences between podcasting with a pre-recorded environment. Think about some of the whys behind why you might want to do it. Live streaming is very different than podcasting. Again, as we talked about, you can pre-record and pre-edit a lot of your content before it goes out to your podcasting distribution. However, with a live stream, it is you in the moment. Some people are extremely comfortable speaking in these environments, especially when you're talking about the presenters here. I think a lot of us are pretty comfortable presenting about our content. A lot of people aren't. So sometimes live streaming may not be the biggest solution up there, but I would always say it's worth giving it a try, because once you get that level of engagement and once you get that that honesty that comes with live streaming, a lot of people really turn the corner to that. And when you're talking about big releases and hot topics, special events, live events, thinking about it as regular bonuses for, let's say, patrons or your average listeners, sometimes having it as those highlights make it extremely worth it to start hosting your live streams, but it'll at least give you even more of a funnel as to why you should live stream. A lot of people, I think, okay, today I'm hearing about live stream, let's just go ahead and launch our live stream. But if you're not feeling comfortable with it, try to use some of these as your way into live streaming. Let's say there's a big movie that comes out, for example, that you want to give your instant reviews on. Hey, I just got it at theaters. Obviously, put spoilers ahead in the title. But if you really want to give your listenership your opinion in the moment, maybe you thought that was one of the best movies you saw. Maybe you thought that there were some dicey moments that you really wanted to speak about. But being able to use it for that is extremely helpful. And again, who might not it be for? It might not be for, let's say, somebody who might not be comfortable delivering an in-the-moment live stream, for example, or an in-the-moment conversation. A lot of people really benefit from having the ability to cut, edit, paste, and pre-record a lot of their content. But again, I'll always say it's worth trying out for sure. And now we get to the conversation of audio versus video live streaming. A lot of the times when we think about live streaming, I'm coming in with the perception of audio. However, in the world of podcasting, video platform is extremely beneficial. It's visually stimulating, and many video live streams show the host. One of the biggest things about growing your message and about growing your podcast is about being able to see who's delivering the message. It's screen-based, so it does mean that you usually have to be attached to your device. And in terms of you running your own video live streams, it may require more technology to effectively run and get started. You're no longer just talking about an audio delivery. You're also talking about people seeing you, people seeing, let's say, your workspace. If you're talking about a lot of bigger podcasts, let's say Joe Rogan, for example, he's got an entire studio. It looks great, but it's still a whole room that he's putting out with multiple camera angles. He has another assistant who's helping him run the whole show. And a lot of live streams at the end of the day that are on video, not constituting the Joe Rogan kinds, are often still image streamed. So they're technically audio live streams. And a lot of the live streams that you see on video are still about the words that are being said. It's not so much about the images. The images are the way to capture your attention, but the words are exactly what you're supposed to be focusing on. So when you talk about your audio live streaming, you talk about a deeper engagement with your spoken word. You're not as concerned with the visual, and you're listening to what the host has to say, the host, the interviewee, the co-host. You're listening to the conversation going on, so you get even deeper engaged with the conversation. Again, as with the podcast, it's hands-free, as we talked about with the video podcast. You may have to sit your phone on the table or your computer while you're, let's say, working around the house or out, whatever the case may be, but you're still just listening to it. This keeps you hands-free, as it does with a general podcast. Less technology is often needed to also run an audio-based live stream. Again, you don't need fancy cameras. You don't need crazy gear. A lot of audio live streaming, audio only, can be done right from your iOS or Android device. And when you're talking about this in-the-moment engaging feedback, you have the ability now on iOS and mobile to have a live stream that's audio only and get your instant feedback, even up to, let's say, a minute afterwards. You can literally load up your handheld device and start speaking about the topic at hand. And it also may be easier to accept and manage call-in guests. When you're talking about a video stream, again, you're talking about a lot of technology, and I can't stress that enough. The technology sometimes can be the devastation of creation, as they say. But if you have less technology at your disposal that you need to worry about, you have more ability to run these more, let's say, these more engaging platforms like your live streaming. And again, with audio, the less you have to do, the better. So as I keep referring to here, our solution is Podbean Live. And this is just a list down of some of the things that Podbean Live offers. You have the ability to invite multiple co-hosts and guests to join your live stream. So what you can do is you can host either from Google Chrome or your iOS or Android device. And you can have, including yourself, up to 5 hosts or call-ins on the show. And you have the ability to download the live show recording and publish it as a podcast episode. So Podbean Live is free for any podcaster. And anybody can go in, download the live show recording, and publish it on whatever platform, whether you're hosted with us on Podbean or whether you're hosted with any hosting platform, that MP3 is able to go. What's also nice if you host from iOS or Android with Podbean Live is that you'll get a localized recording. So even up to the minute, you'll be able to receive that MP3. You can also receive donations and virtual tickets from your listeners in order to monetize your podcast. Your listeners can donate in various price points. You have a two-way chat window to chat with listeners. You can host it, as I said, from your desktop, whether that's Windows or Apple, or from your mobile devices. And as with most of these live streaming, Podbean promotes your live streams if they're scheduled in advance or coming up on Podbean's mobile app page, which has about 1.5 million listeners per month. So right on the front page of the app, you have the ability to have your live stream seen, which, as we're talking about, is not only great for your current listenership, but is also great for helping you grow your community. So I want to go ahead and stop sharing this screen here, and I'd like to pop in to just give you a quick couple-minute rundown of the Podbean Live demo here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. All right, great. And I'm going to reshare my screen here. And just to make sure, can everybody see my screen? You should see a YouTube video here.
Looks good.
All right, perfect. So if you've been to any one of my webinars, you know I constantly check. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? I just want to make sure everyone's keeping score here. So what we have here is we have our general Podbean Live interface. This is run from Google Chrome. So up at the top, we see that we have our audience engagement score and pod points. So it'll show you the overall activity through the month, as well as the amount of total listeners you've had. And your engagement score is created through the amount of listeners you have through the month, the amount of, or the length of how those listeners stay engaged with your podcast through donations, through length of time listened, through followership, through all of these different statistics. And then Pod Points is the virtual currency at which Podbean delivers through PayPal to you to help pay for the podcast. So any donations that you receive, any virtual ticket money you receive, gets put in the Pod Point section here. And as you're seeing here, I have my first live stream set up. Down at the bottom, it says my first live show. If I go ahead and the pre-recorded virtual me clicks on go live, this brings us right into the interface here. Now, with Podbean Live, whether you're on iOS, Android, or desktop, you can use any of your outboard gear that you're looking for. So for the plug to Focusrite, if you are using a Scarlett and any sorts of external microphones, headphones, it's advised that you use them, and you can use them to create the best sound possible. So right here in our interface, we have a few different sections here. Over on the right-hand side, we have the ability for you to accept guests and call-ins, and we have the ability for you to add audio effects and music. From the iOS app, you have the ability to add music to the platform from your mobile device. However, on the desktop, it would be through Podbean's royalty-free library. In the middle is that chat window that we discussed earlier. What's great about that chat window is not only can you chat with your live stream listeners, but your live stream listeners can also chat with you. And this is where you'll also see in the moment donations and virtual gifts. So you'll see a combination of all of that here. What's also great about that is as the live stream goes on, when somebody joins your live stream, in the middle of the screen, you'll see a follow button pop up. So Podbean really wants your listeners to continue to support your podcast over time. So you have the ability for follow there. Over on the left-hand side, you see the Pod Points, which will show you the accrual of your Pod Points over time in the podcast. You'll see the Listeners tab also, which will show you all of the listeners that you have. And then up at the top, you'll be able to edit your live stream as well as start your live stream here. So now I'm going to go ahead and stop, and I'm actually going to move to a different part of this video here. Let's see. So as soon as you're done with your live stream, you'll get a small view here of thanks for using Podbean Live, and it'll tell you about the different pod points, participants, and new followers that you receive. So while we speak so much about the ability to gain new listenership, over on the right-hand side, you'll see that we even make it a point for you to see how your new followers have developed. And what we'll do also is right here, you should see down at the bottom that my first live show is completed. It showed I had one listener. And yeah, that's the Podbean interface for Podbean Live in general here. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen and share a few more screens here with you. And share, beautiful. And let me move this out of the way so you can see these here. So this is about Podbean Live and about the ability to do audio live streaming here. So I want to go ahead and leave a few links and QR codes that you can use to access on here. So over on the right-hand side, you should see that it says register for a Podbean Live webinar. As I said, we do a variety of different webinars on the different tools we provide, including an even more in-depth on Podbean Live and the tools that it can work out for you. And over on the left-hand side, we see that it says learn more about Podbean Live. If you scan this QR code, it'll bring you right to the Podbean Live splash page. We'll tell you a little bit more about what Podbean Live can do, some of the capabilities of it. And again, any questions that you have, please feel free to email me at johnk@podbean.com. I am the head of marketing, so any questions that you have regarding that also, please feel free to reach out. Down at the bottom, you should see some various social media links that we have through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or you can also join our Podcasting Smarter Facebook group. We have a bunch of different podcasters who are part of that group. It's not just, it's based from Podbean, but we have a variety of different hosted podcasts there. So it's really just a community to help share and spread information about the podcasting community, new news, as well as for podcasters to share information and get support and help about anything that they could want. It's really just about, as I said at the beginning, building community, fostering the podcasting community. But anytime with Facebook and Twitter, please feel free to reach out to us. Instagram, same thing. I'd like to open it up to any questions that anyone may have at this time.
Yeah, love it. Thanks, John. Again, you guys can use the chat box here if you have any questions, or the Q&A section as well. We have access to all of them.
Sure.
While we have those, John, let me ask you this. Right, you've been doing this for a little while. You're kind of you're connected to a lot of different scenes in podcasting, not just in the U.S. but abroad as well.
Sure.
I keep asking this to some of our speakers. What is all this going to look like in 3 years, podcasting wise?
It's a crazy question, isn't it? I think that podcasting, we'll talk about podcasting and live streaming. I think podcasting itself is becoming an even more engaging medium over time. Even in the times that we're in now, you're seeing people really engage with, creatives and media in a way that we haven't really seen before. I think that podcasting, the beautiful thing about it is a lot of the times it removes this, it removes a lot. It removes a lot of the visual that you need. It removes a lot of that expensive technology. It's simply, you have your phone or your mobile device or your computer, and you can simply go over, you can just literally start listening to it. So I think we're just going to see more and more podcasts develop. I think in terms of live streaming, we're going to continue to see this rev up. I think whether it's video or audio based, we're going to start seeing a lot more as it pertains to people wanting more engaging feedback. I think especially when it comes to news and it comes to, I use sports all the time, but when it comes to these, people really want their opinions heard in the moment. And I think we're going to start seeing, as live streaming picks up even more and more, we're going to see way more of that pop up over the years.
I love it. We have a question here in the chat box. What's the difference between using Podbean versus Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, or even TikTok Live?
Sure. Yeah. So with Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, you're talking about that video platform as we spoke about before. That video is video live stream. With Podbean, it is all the audio only. So what's great about IG and YouTube and Facebook is that you have the ability to see who's presenting and see what's going on. It also offers you not just podcasting in the moment, but the ability to see what's going on in the moment. The audio only is a completely separate beast in and of itself. But with that audio only comes the ability to engage even deeper with the words that are being spoken on the screen, or the words that are being spoken in the audio.
Do you have access to the Q&A section, John?
Yes, I do.
I'll read it. Okay, I was going to say I'd read it out to you, but yeah, if you have it there, go ahead and start picking
Sure.
action.
Let me take a look. So what are the values for launching a new podcast series as a live streaming podcast? So it truly varies. What I think, again, when it comes to live streaming is really about the level of engagement that you want with your audience in the moment. When you're talking about a pre-recorded live stream, let's say you're doing a true crime show and you really want to go over, for example, the topics of that case, but you want to just deliver the message up front. You can set different points in the live stream to accept questions, let's say. So for example, if you have a topic that you're talking about in your live stream and you say, hey, in the last 10, 15 minutes, as we're doing here with this webinar, we're able to leave some time at the end for questions. You can create a format for your live stream that allows people to know, oh, we're going to go ahead and get the chance to speak and be engaged. So I think that's one of the biggest things for sure. I think that if you are a new podcast and you build it into your ethos and platform up front, then you're just letting your audience know every time, hey, there's a chance to engage with the words that I'm saying and engage with the hosts of the podcast at some point wherever you choose that to be. So I think the more engaged you can be with your audience and your listenership, the more you'll be able to grow your podcast over time and much quicker. And so I'm going to go ahead and look at the next one here. When a podcast goes live, how would new people see it? Does it show up on their phones under Spotify and under Apple Podcasts? So with Podbean Livestream, it is accessible through the Podbean iOS and Android apps exclusively. What happens is when you post your live stream, depending on the tier that you're with Podbean, if you're on the free one, you can schedule one in advance. As you go into the different tiers, you can schedule more in advance. Your followers can follow your podcast on the Podbean app, And when you go live, they'll be notified that you're going live. On top of that, that gets promoted in the front page of the Podbean app. So if you were to download the Podbean app right now and just go to the front page, down at the middle, you should see that you have a bunch of live streams currently going on. And then if you click on more, you should see that you have a bunch of live streams that are scheduled for later times as well. So with Podbean, we do a lot in terms of in the moment and in terms of getting that platform to show you the visuals. We do a lot on the social media side as well. If you're tagging hashtag Podbean Live or letting us know, hey, I have this live stream coming up, we try to promote it as much as we can as well too. We want you to be able to get the most visibility. So those are some of the ways that we get it in front of people. And thank you for your question, by the way. I didn't thank the other person, so thank you for your question as well. So it looks like we have another one here. Where do listeners view and where do listeners and viewers see the live stream? Do they need to go on Podbean? Again, yes, it is exclusive to the Podbean app. And then we have another question here. Is the best practice to upload the live episode to your host or send it out with your feed unless it's premium content? To me, that's totally up to how you choose to run your podcast. A lot of podcasters like to simply say, you know what, that was a great podcast. It was live, it was raw, it was engaging. Let's just flip it as a podcast episode. I think that there's value in that if you feel that you are a strong presenter and you feel like that live stream was what you wanted to get across. But again, because you can download the live stream as an MP3 and then put it into your DAW of choice, whether it's GarageBand, Logic, Audacity, whatever you're using, I think there's benefit to either or. So it's totally up to you how you choose to go about it. But a lot of people also, that's also a great way that you can use it. Let's say you are doing an exclusive live stream. One thing I forgot to mention is that we recently added an unlisted version or an unlisted mode in Podbean live stream. So you have the ability not only to shoot a live stream out to everybody, but now live stream can also be used for remote recording or exclusive patron-only live stream. So something like that, if you're trying to create, let's say, an exclusive live stream, you can have that link that's shared to your listeners, and then you can publish it as premium content later too to keep it exclusive. So I think that depending on how you run your live stream and how you run your podcast, you can do either or, but I think both of those are great for you. And thank you for that question. That's a really good one. And then we are asked, if you live stream every podcast episode, does that cut out having to spend any time editing? That's a good question also. Again, it goes back to how comfortable you feel with how you did on the live stream. I feel that with a lot of podcast hosts, because it's so engaging and because it's such a different feel, a lot of podcasters go, you know what, that was great. Let's just flip it to be a new podcast episode. A lot of podcasters though, you know, if there's certain chat maybe that they want to remove, or they are extremely sensitive to, you know, your ums and buts and those kinds of things, they may take it and edit it. It really varies podcaster to podcaster. But if you are somebody that kind of does a one shot and you're basically like a one trick record, then yeah, it can definitely cut down on the time editing. But I wouldn't want you to think that the reason you should live stream is to cut down on editing. More so, if you're going to live stream, I think you can definitely have that as your modus. But I think that what you can do is if you prepare for your live stream before time, say, this is how the framework's going to go. This is what I'm going to speak about. This is how we're going to lay it out. It can prepare your live stream, and just like you would for your podcast, it would prepare your live stream to be converted into a podcast episode much quicker. Those are all very good questions. Thank you all for your questions here.
Now, John, I noticed that so live stream is becoming more and more popular, right? And I think it works for some niche podcasts more than others, right? Interview shows, I think, would be great to live stream and kind of add that little bit more of excitement to it as well. Anything that you're seeing out there that works or maybe doesn't work when it comes to live streaming?
Sure. I would say one of the big things that really does work is engaging the audience. I think the chat features have been really helpful with our podcasters to be successful in live streaming. I think often when I'm asked by podcasters, what are the ways that I can really create a great podcast? What are the ways that I can create a great live stream? One of the things that I always put out there is prepare. preparation and the pre-show work is always essential. If you go into a live stream, or you go into, just as you would, let's say, in a podcast, if you say, okay, we're just going to talk, a lot of the times that's great, but you still want to know what you're talking about. If you have transitions and segues, you want to know where those are coming. You want to kind of beat by beat it a little bit. I'm very big on, for my podcast, we basically mark out every single beat. So we say, okay, we're going to talk about this segment for 10, 15 minutes, let's say. If we want to expand on it, we expand 5 or so minutes on either end. But we try to do that beat by beat for our general podcast. I think going into a live stream, that becomes even more important, especially if you are, as I'm saying, starting to engage even more with your audience. Because if you have a conversation with an audience member and, you know, that can go off on a tangent extremely quickly, you can all of a sudden have, let's say, a 10-minute, 15-minute engaging segment, all of a sudden taking up 25, 30 minutes. Now you're in the weeds. So that can be a little bit difficult. So the pre-show work and just really making sure that you know what you're going to be speaking about on your live stream, that can't be understated.
Love it. Anybody else? We'll give it a sec before we end this. But John, this has been a really good stuff. I think again, I think most of us are leaning more towards the live streaming part of podcasting, just because it's, for the most part, for us anyway, it's a little bit more engaging. The stakes are higher, it feels like, for us, and we're enjoying it. So congrats on the work that you guys are doing, and for coming here and sharing it with our audience.
Of course. And thank you so much for giving us the opportunity, the opportunity to be able to speak about not just Podbean Live, but the ability to speak about live streaming in general. Again, especially nowadays, you know, we do hunger for that human communication. You know, we do want to go ahead and give our feedback in the moment. We want to be able to have that connectivity. And I think live streaming in general, no matter what platform you use, whether it's video or audio, is a great way to help build community. It's a great way to continue to speak to your fellow person. And I think, you know, we're going to see way more of it going on. So again, thank you so much for giving me the time, and thanks for everybody for joining.